Hi, welcome to Moonlit Fly Fishing and Fly Tying Night tonight. I'm Brandon Moon, and we're going to be tying a really cool pattern. The Purple Haze is one of our favorite dry fly patterns to tie and fish. Today we're going to be tying up the Purple Haze Hackle Stacker. This is an emerger type pattern. Very great pattern to fish, and we hope you enjoy it. With that, we'll go ahead and get started. So the hook that we're going to be using is the Moonlit Premium Toata ML 102. We're tying a size 14. This is our favorite size, go-to size, but feel free to tie this anywhere from a size 8 all the way to a size 20. We're going to start the thread at roughly about the 3/4 mark. We're going to wrap it all the way back to the back where we're going to tie in our Claret-colored Semperfli tail fiber fibbets. We're going to take 2 of them, measure them out so that they're nice and even. Once we've measured those out, you can see I have left that tag in there, and you'll see why in just a minute. We'll measure that out so that it's the length of the hook shank. We're just going to tie that in. I'm going to give a couple loose wraps. You can see it's kind of pulling that tail fiber to the top. I'm going to take and make sure that I pin it up on top all the way. Now I'm going to separate my tail fibers here so that they're at that V shape. Pull that tag end through, and then I'm just going to secure that thread down with 3 wraps. Trim out the excess thread and tail fibers at that 3/4 point. Finish covering it up and securing it down. Now we're just going to go back to the tail point here. Before I get all the way back though, I'm going to take and give a couple wraps underneath the tail. That's going to help make sure that I prop these tail fibers up versus pushing them down. Now we're going to take a Magpie wild barred Turkey Biot. We'll moisten that up. We're going to check and then make sure that we tie that with the ridge side towards the bottom of the hook. Secure that down all the way up to the front. We want a nice smooth even body. Now we're going to create a taper by separating this body into 3 sections. We'll go back and then forward, back again, and then forward, and then back. And again, we separated this into thirds to create a nice seamless taper. Now we'll half hitch this so that we can use our rotary feature on our vise. I'm going to take my Loon ergonomical hackle pliers, and I'm going to wrap this biot with that ridge facing the back side of the hook. And you can see that's going to give me a nice, smooth, even, seamless taper to the body of this fly. I'm going to wrap that all the way up past that tie-in point, because when I tie this off on the back side of that, I want to make sure that I'm giving that 3/4 for the body and the 1/4 for the thorax. I'm going to set, after I tie that in, set the thread off on the bobbin rest again. Trim out the excess Turkey Biot, and then I'm just going to take and finish securing that down. Now this is where we add in our post that we use to wrap the hackle for the hackle stacker. I'm using like a 7X tippet or 0.105 millimeters. I'm going to create a loop and then tie that off and secure that down in here. And you can see I do have this longer than what I'm going to use. I've got a couple wraps. Now I'm going to pull that tight. I have that one longer stem, so I'm going to trim that out. Once I've trimmed that out, I'm going to go back to that 3/4 point. At this point, I'm going to take my dark barred ginger. I've already prepped this. I'm tying this in with the shiny side facing down, and a little extra wrap pulled off so that when it wraps around that, it's going to be a nice clean wrap. I'm going to pull that up and hold my middle finger in my left hand, and I'm going to wrap this around about 8 times, and you can see I'm pulling and grabbing it in between my two fingers in my left hand and then grabbing it back around with my right hand. I'll go about 8 or 9 wraps up the top, however many I need to give me the length up that. I like mine to have extra hackle in the top side of this, so I'm going to wrap it back down the post with a good couple wraps down the post, going back down to where I'm going to tie my hackle off here. As soon as I get that, I'm going to pull my stem back, hold my hackle in place where I tie it off with a couple wraps over the top. I'll pull it back, put a locking wrap in front. Now I'm going to take and trim that out. Now I've got my hackle trimmed out. I can clean up any of those longer fibers if I have any left. Now I'm going to take some beaver dubbing in purple. I've already preened the guard hairs out of here, so I'm going to take a small amount and just create a nice little dubbing noodle rope here. I'm going to pull my hackle fibers and my post back, and I'm just going to wrap my thorax. Once I've got that wrapped, I'm going to preen those fibers back so that when I lay it down, it's going to lay down over the top. You can see that this is probably the hardest part of this fly. I'm going to loosely put that monofilament and give it 3 wraps over the top. Once I've got it over the top of that with those 3 wraps, I'm going to pull that tight down so that that hackle pulls down over the top of my body there. I'm going to take a little bit of super glue, put it on my thread. I'm going to go over the top of my mono with about 2 wraps, pull my mono back, and in front of the mono 2 more wraps. Now I can take my whip finish tool, and that super glue just helps create a nice good strong head here. Couple turn whip finish, snip that thread out. Now I'm going to take and trim out the mono post here. Make sure my tails stay split. Trim that out. Then I can trim any excess fibers I need to trim out. And there you have the Hackle Stacker Purple Haze. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful evening.